thought I recognized the number. I answered and it was a BDR. And I'm like, I thought this was an emergency. And this is just you trying to get in touch with me on a Thursday afternoon to pitch your product. I don't know what you're doing. And I know this is not a fault of your own, but have your company remove me from this list. And I don't remember the name of the company, although I should, but I call that like the negative touch point because it's a company I know I will never buy from again. So yeah, that's another downside of the predictable revenue model is you're also not only not winning deals, but you're killing off potential future deals because of the behaviors that you're taking.
Welcome to the B2B Playbook. We built this channel for small B2B marketing teams who want to drive more revenue for their business. Every week, we're showing you how to create more demand for your brand step by step using our 5Bs framework. So if you're time poor, resource strapped, but you still want to make a big impact on your business, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below so you don't miss an episode. Welcome back to the B2B Playbook. Listeners, as you know, we rarely have guests on our show. Instead, we select a few true experts who align with our view that B2B marketing is more about people, not platforms. Today, our special guest is Sam Kuehnle. Sam is the VP of Marketing at Loxo. Loxo is the #1 talent intelligence platform and global leader in recruiting software. Sam has been on my radar ever since his Refined Labs days, and I'm very excited for this conversation to discuss how demand gen and sales can work better together. Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate having me. And now that I know the buildup is that high, we rarely have guests. I hope I don't disappoint.
Yeah, look, normally my co-host and I, we like to keep it between ourselves and we
Yeah.
really like to handpick who we have on. And I think when I reach out to people and tell them that, I'm not sure they necessarily believe me, but if people go through and look at our back catalog, it's absolutely true. So we only look for the best, and I consider you to be right up there. So very excited for this conversation.
Love it. I'm excited.
Let's do it.
All right, Sam, look, as I said, you first caught my eye when you were VP of Demand Gen at Refined Labs. A bit of time has passed since then, and you've been at Loxo for 1.5 years or so, and you've been keeping us up to date with your thoughts and learnings on your newsletter and your LinkedIn. In particular, I've found myself nodding along to your strategy on how demand gen and sales can exist better together. And that's something I really want to explore, like how they practically can coexist for a stronger go-to-market outcome. But maybe before we dive into that, just so our listeners and viewers have a bit more context, would you mind just sharing a little bit about Loxo?
Yeah, Loxo. So you said world's leading #1 talent intelligence platform. I always laugh. Of course, we're going to say we're the #1. It's like Lex on our team has this running joke where she did this little skit where I'm the #1 ATS, and then she sees like someone else at the conference says, wait, I'm the #1 ATS, and just the whole thing. We all say that, but no. Long story short of Loxo is we're a talent intelligence platform. What the heck is that? It's a new category. Okay, cool, Sam. You're a marketer. You're creating a new category. We all do this, but the long story short of it is recruiters, like marketers, have one of the heaviest tech stacks I've ever seen, which is absolutely wild. So they have an applicant tracking system, and we cater more towards the agency recruiters, the headhunters, those who are trying to find the niche roles or non-in-house recruiters. So they have their applicant tracking system. They have a recruiting CRM. They have a sourcing tool like LinkedIn Recruiter. They have an email outreach tool, but to use that, they have to get contact information from people. And they just have this whole slew. It's usually about 10 plus different tools that one recruiter will need just to make a single placement, which is bananas. And it's all disjointed. Someone today one of our customers called it a Frankenstack, because it's just all these different things bolted on that are quote unquote integrated, but not really. It's copy and pasting. It's a poor API. It's something else. So we look at the true workflow of what does a recruiter need to do from beginning to end, and we have that in one spot. And that's the combination then is like time savings, money savings, additional efficiencies gained to get to more placements, faster placements for you. So it's really looking at just the way that recruiters had been recruiting for a while is broken, not based on what they were doing, but the tech that they were forced to jump through hoops to use. We're like, let's just make something that's more native to how they want to recruit. And that's the birth of Loxo.
It makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Can you give us an indication as to what growth stage the company is at itself? Maybe, I don't know, employee size, whatever it is you can share, just to give our listeners some context as to where you guys are at.
Yeah. So we're fully bootstrapped, privately owned company. And that was one of the reasons why I love it, because we're in it for the long game here. Context for size, we are at about 75 employees right now. And when I joined,
Awesome.
we were about 50. And that was a year and a half ago.
Fantastic. And just going back to a year and a half ago when we did join or you were looking at joining, what was the challenge that was laid down before you when you were hired as VP?
The type of challenge that every marketer, every marketing leader looks forward to: create more awareness for our brand. And I looked at that as just like, okay, like every CEO wants to say, we need more brand awareness, but is that really what you need? Looking at it also, I'm a huge data nerd. I dug into the funnels, I dug into everything that was done previously. And what they really did need was brand awareness because our win rates were phenomenal. We saw, you're familiar with the Refined Labs methodology, how Chris talked about like the hero platform stage, whatever opportunity stage, 25% or higher. We, as the past couple of quarters, we have been winning from demo request to closed one at 33% or more. That's from just they submit the form, not even have an opportunity created yet. So that tells me I'm just like, holy shit, he was right. And that we just need to get more people in the funnel because when they see it, they got it. And that goes to what I was saying about the platform. They're just like, oh my God, I can do this all in one place. It's so much easier. It's so much better for us. But not enough people knew who we were because recruiting software is a very crowded space. Think about just like a CRM space in marketing or any MarTech, RecTech is very crowded. So there are, I think it was over 125 different ATS platforms alone that you could pick from today. And that's on G2's grids and everything else that you can check out. But crowded space, very saturated space. So how do we get more people familiar with us? Because when they do understand who we are, we win.
So you clearly have that product market fit. Like that's very clear. If they're submitting that demo and you're winning 1 in 3 of those, that's a fantastic outcome. But as you said, brand awareness is a challenge and you're effectively in a new category. So in your mind, what is the difference between brand awareness and then actually creating demand? And which are you trying to do?
Oh man, you're gonna get me in trouble. This is a hot debate on LinkedIn right now with some fun friends of ours. Not in a bad way. It's a very joking. There's a lot of like people who have the brand marketing philosophy of like demand creation is just slapping a new name on what brand awareness truly is, the fundamentals and everything else. But the way that I describe it is brand awareness is knowing you know who they are and what they do. Creating demand, though, to me is going a step beyond that and saying, like, when I finally do come to market, you are the one that I want to go with. So it's recognizing that people are in existing contracts. People can't make a decision today, but there's that whole like first list that you want to be on when people go to market. But how can you ensure that when they finally do get to that point, that it's not just, hey, we know who Loxo is and what they do, but I already know I'm going to go with them. It's just a matter of time. I know it's not today, but it will be in 7 months when our contract's up. You better know that I'm going to be submitting a demo request to Loxo month before that to get the ball rolling on it.
So I guess it's like the difference between just awareness and like having true affinity, I suppose, right? It's like it's one step further than just
Yeah,
recognizing a brand name.
in a way. So it could be affinity. It could be just knowing the value is better than the other option. So an example I like to always give is, I think it was like 3 years ago. You couldn't go on YouTube without getting a Monday.com ad. No matter what you did, every video pre-roll was Monday.com. And I can tell you exactly what they do. They're a project management tool. It's Kanban style. It's this and that. But it never communicated to me like why them. They're in a very crowded space also. They're coming up against Asana, Basecamp, Trello, all these different players in the space. But it never compelled me or made me think, what is it that they do different? What is it that makes them better, more unique, anything in that game? So it's just like I knew a name in the space, but I never had that reason of knowing like, okay, I'll evaluate them alongside the others, but I don't have any like gut feeling towards why I should want to go with them when the time is right.
And I suppose like exactly why that solution is right for you versus someone else. So like
Hmm.
why it's the perfect fit for you. Okay, I think we're probably quite aligned in how we see the difference in those two. And I know there are people out there who say we're splitting hairs and maybe disagree with us, but I think that it's actually a really practical way to think about that to get us going that extra step beyond
Hmm.
just getting people to recognize and recall our own brand.
Yeah. Get past the names of it, call it what you want to call it, but the buying psychology, that's what we're trying to speak to right here.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I don't care what you call it as long as like you share your process on how to do it. Let's look at what that actually
Hmm.
really looks like.
Yeah.
Sam, look, as marketers, I think there's a huge obsession with quantity-based growth strategies. And I think the predictable revenue model is probably been propelling that for a long time. Maybe would you be able to share a little bit about what your understanding is of the predictable revenue model and perhaps why you think that's keeping so many companies from growing?
Hmm. I'll share a story that I think will do better of explaining predictable revenue model. First company that I worked at, big publicly traded company, $1 billion in annual revenue. It's on the marketing team. And I remember sitting in end of quarter wrap up meeting, marketing's in the room, sales is in the room. Everyone's basically, it's like the quarterly readout. Mind you, I'm like at the very bottom of the totem pole. So I'm in like the back corner, hidden behind all the important people. But we were going through the readouts and it was always just, okay, how did the quarter go? Okay, marketing, do your part, sales, do your part. What's the takeaways? What's the insights? How are we moving forward in the next quarter? Marketing does their part. Forget what it was. It's like marketing exceeds MQL goal by 20%. Everyone's cheering, jumping, clapping. Not literally. There was a lot of excitement from the marketing team. 5 minutes later, sales go and they missed revenue target by 15%. And so to me, that is the perfect example of the predictable revenue model, because it's like marketing fill up the top, hand it off, but how do you define MQL? What is going into the top? And when you have two teams that one is heavily surpassing goals and one team that's missing goals, there's a misalignment right there. And that came from that root philosophy of we were following the predictable revenue model, which like no fault of the leadership, like that's what was told, that was what was best practice at the time. But from early days, I started to see this disconnect of like, how is it possible that one team can be so far ahead and at that handoff, like something is occurring where it's just not turning into the company goals and hitting all of that. So you want to talk about silos, you want to talk about different goals and everything else. It's all in one spot. So yeah, predictable revenue model, great on paper, not so good in practice.
And just to clarify that a little bit further, that predictable revenue model, and I think that came out in your story, but it's basically the split out of that role of the SDR and the AE, right? Where you have the SDR who is churning through the market and their sole objective is book the meeting, and they do it at all costs. And you normally get, because like you've got to reach far and wide, you can't afford like the best people. They're normally not that well educated on the industry. They're not that well educated on the product itself. And they're literally just churning through the market, looking for that needle in a haystack. Tell them whatever they need to hear to book a meeting. The AE then handles that. And again, anything is promised to really try and win that deal. That is then handed off to customer success, and it's Churn City, right? Because no one is aligned at all.
No.
And then you look at how much did this actually cost us to acquire this customer, and people aren't looking into how much did it cost us in wages alone of these people to find this needle in a haystack. And it's crazy. It's huge. Do you think companies are going to start to kind of pay attention to those numbers a little more?
They're starting to. At least a lot of the companies that I've gotten my bubble, they're starting to get that and see that, because yeah, the predictable revenue model, it's a forced funnel at the end of the day. And when you really start look, because it came from also like monopoly money times, growth at all costs, free money from the banks, interest rates were next to nothing, right? So they could afford to do all of that. But now when it's okay, if we want to scale, what's the best way of doing it? But also the market has caught up to it. People, I'm looking at my cell phone right now. If someone used to call my phone, I'd pick it up and answer, hey, what's up? It's Sam. How's it going? But now every time my phone rings, I don't know how it is over in Australia, but it looks like it's a number from my area code, which I now live 1,800 miles from where I grew up. And it's always some BDR that's using an auto dialer that makes it look like, oh, it's a local call for you, even though it's really not. And the reason why I share that is because it's what I've started to call like a negative touch point. People used to answer that call, hey, sorry, just not interested. Call me back in 6 months. We're in a contract. Cool. Sounds good. Hang up, click. But rise of auto dialers, rise of every company picking up on this philosophy means that take that one call, but now multiply it by 10, by 20 per day, per week. And you've got people in leadership positions, you've got people in management positions, and now they're even going at the bottom of the funnel, just the day-to-day practitioners, they're getting calls all the time too. And it's distracting. It's usually not the right time. I have no idea who you are, what your company does half the time, because if that's the mindset that they're running with, they're not doing brand awareness properly. They're not developing relationships. It's, hey, are you in the market right now? Cool. Not okay. So reason why I say that is this concept of the negative touch point has started to come out more, where you have a BDR. I started as a BDR. It used to be you have to make 60 dials a day. So I'd make my 60 dials. I might get 2 leads from it. The other 58 leads would go back into a nurture. We'd call them again in a couple more times that month, and then we pick them back up 6 months from now. But now with the negative touch point, it's you might get probably 1 lead. I wouldn't even say 2 leads out of the 60, but also auto dialers, I see BDR quotas have 100 dials a day they have to hit. So they're probably getting like 1, maybe 2 leads out of the 100. A bunch of people not interested, but there's a small percentage of those that I probably say like anywhere from 3 to 5% are getting what's called like the negative touch point, where they're just like, do not call me again. No, I will not buy from you, because it's just this forced hit over the head execution. Like, I mean, you go and look at the plays, the triple tap. I want to triple tap myself anytime that I hear that, because it's what it is it's like, okay, call them. If they don't answer, call them again. If they don't answer, call them a third time. And I'd be like, who does that? Like, there was one time I genuinely, like, I thought I recognized the number, I answered, and it was a BDR. And I'm like, I thought this was an emergency. And this is just you trying to get in touch with me on a Thursday afternoon to pitch your product. I don't know what you're doing. And I know this is not a fault of your own, but have your company remove me from this list. And I don't remember the name of the company, although I should, but I call that like the negative touch point, because it's a company I know I will never buy from again. Like, I could go into my email domain and just tell you exactly like which BDRs, which companies are on that block list. And I'll reference that anytime that I know like I need to go to the market or anyone in our company is going to market. So yeah, that's another downside of the predictable revenue model, is you're also not only not winning deals, but you're killing off potential future deals because of the behaviors that you're taking.
Yeah, the concept of the negative touch point. I love that. And I think that's why, yeah, organizations can't afford to just churn and burn the market in the way that they are. In Australia, our pickup rates, I think, are higher than the US, but we have the exact same problem. People make it look like they're calling from your area. They do the double, triple dial. Personally, I don't really pick up calls unless I really know the number, because I'm just so sick of it. I think the worst thing I ever did was I submitted an inquiry on Zoom Info's website, and they did not leave me alone for months. It was the worst thing I've ever done. And it was relentless. Like, it made my phone just almost useless for that time period. And I think probably the other thing that the predictable revenue model does is it kind of handcuffs marketing, because marketing's role becomes get leads for then sales team to go ahead and dial. And so we're trying to feed that machine. And when the objectives become leads and contact details for people to dial, then we don't really get any time or budget left to do any real marketing. Because
No.
if that's our objective, then every single piece of marketing we want to put out there should be trying to capture some kind of lead.
Yeah. And it's crazy too when you think about it, especially in today's day and age. It's, oh, we'll get our cost per lead down to $50, down to $25. And if your lead, the purpose is to pass it off to a BDR to then call, say, why are you spending $25, $50 when you can go to Zoom Info, go to some other and get that contact information for 25 cents, 50 cents? Either way, when the BDR calls, they're not interested. And also, you've trained the market not to download any of your stuff, because they know what's going to happen after the fact. So not only are you wasting ad dollars, you're wasting BDR resource and time to accomplish a very poor probability of the outcome that you want to go after.
So what's the next move here, the solution? Is it that we need to shift to like a more consultative approach with the customer, both from a marketing and a sales standpoint? What's your kind of view?
I can tell you what we're doing. I can't tell you if it's the best answer. I can tell you it's working better for us than the predictable revenue model, but I'm sure that there's a different flavor of this, and other people have thoughts. But yeah, it's like the consultative approach. So we have our go-to-market team, our GTM lead team. It consists of our head of sales in Europe, our head of sales in the US, our BDR team lead, and myself. We all get together, we talk just like, hey, what's going on? What are we working on? Any key accounts that we want to be aware of? And just like, how are we interplaying with one another? Because, and why our relationship is so good is, yes, we all have goals. Like, BDRs should source this much pipeline revenue, sales should source this much, marketing should source this much. But at the end of the day, we understand that we have one shared go-to-market new customer acquisition goal, and we don't care if one team misses and another team excels, because we know that how we've set up our go-to-market efforts is we operate in an ecosystem. And the way that I best describe this, and I go back to my BDR days, is I remember calling a prospect. Hey, it's Sam calling from Loxo. How's it going? Sam? What's Loxo? I've never heard of that. I don't have time for this right now. Click, right? When you have marketing and BDRs interplaying well, hey, it's Sam from Loxo. How's it going? Oh, Loxo, yeah, I just saw your case study about a similar company to ours. It was struggling with this. Or I just saw your CEO's post on LinkedIn the other day. Hey, actually, I can't talk right now, but can you call me back in 30 minutes? I'm jumping into a meeting right now. Completely different dynamic. Or they take the call on that spot. They want the follow-up. So that's one example where that might become a customer. And I know I just shared 2 touch points. Journeys have hundreds of touch points, but who gets credit for that? Marketing? Sales? organic, paid, BDR? How does that all work? And that's why we say we don't care at the end of the day or get caught up so in the details of it. But what we want to do is how do we stack the deck in our favor so that when the BDRs do call, we're not having them take the predictable revenue model approach, but we want them to have conversations because we understand that marketing, you can do one to countless people. BDRs is a more finite resource. They can only reach out to so many people. So we grade our accounts and we have them focusing on our A and B accounts, so to speak. And so when they make those calls, we want the prospects to have an understanding of who we are, what we do, and also a positive association with us. And not that like it's a BDR triple tapping them over and over, but anytime that they get a call from us, it's usually it's going to be something helpful and not jumping straight into, are you ready for a demo yet? Are you ready for a demo yet? Are you ready for a demo yet? But just like, how's it going? We're hearing from other companies in your specific industry for the niche that you recruit for that right now, it's like you're struggling with biz dev. Like I talk to a bunch of people every day. How can I help? Is there anything that I can share with you? And just being more of a peer and a holder of like, you get to see countless data points on what's working and what's not and share that and become a trusted advisor. That's what we found to be like the kind of secret to success, so to speak, when we play like these larger one to many marketing efforts is how do we have those two play in tandem versus trying to operate with like marketing lead gen in one silo, BDR lead gen predictive revenue model in another silo, and then hope that we get some semblance of results versus making them be force multipliers of one another and stronger growth curve as a result of that.
So just getting into the, I suppose, like the practicalities of you and the sales team working together. If you don't mind me asking, who reports to who? Is there a CRO that sits in there as well? What does that look like?
Yeah, no CR yet. We have our head of European sales is our VP of sales also. So he and I both report to the CEO. North American sales reports to the VP of sales. BDR manager reports to the VP of sales, but he and I work very closely. It's dotted line almost in a way, but that's our current work structure.
Okay. And then in terms of the two teams aligning on this is the ICP we're targeting, this is the segment we're really going after, does that information come from marketing? Does marketing work collaboratively with sales to come up with that and set that target and that goal for the next 6, 12 months? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a shared model. So we have a very defined ICP with the types of recruiters that we go after. So it's pretty like we can segment that easily in LinkedIn and insert your contact enrichment data platform. We can pop it in, get the people out that we want. So we align on that and then work with them they rank the accounts. Who are the A's? There's call it 10% of our market is A's, 20% is B's, 40% is C's, and then the rest is just, hey, if they come in, great. If not, no worries. And then with that, we have certain AEs and BDRs that are focusing more time on the A's and B's. Marketing's providing air cover to the entire market and everything else over it. But we're always making sure that we have them all being touched at a level of frequency that we want to make sure that we're staying top of mind with them. So we have like active ABM accounts for BDRs where we're saying, hey, these accounts are actively being worked this quarter by BDRs. If it's checked, like they're going after. If it's not checked, they aren't. And then we have one that says like marketing ABM. Is this just like an account that we know we absolutely want to land sometime? And those are getting pulled into what like we'd call like our evergreen targeting list. Like they're always going to be getting different types of ads from us and content will be surfacing to them whenever they're on social media or the other platforms that we know they spend more time on.
And I suppose in that both teams, both marketing and sales, and probably CS are constantly getting insights from the customer or from the coal face that they can feed back to each other to win more together. Do you guys have a practical way of communicating those? Is it like a weekly stand up every 2 weeks? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah, we're a heavy async company and we try to not I won't say avoid meetings. We're very collaborative, but we're a distributed team. We do a lot just through Slack. We've got a ton of different Slack channels. So we have a GTM Slack channel, which is the GTM leadership. It's the 5 people that I mentioned earlier. And usually we'll just drop most things in there that we can just chat about over the course of the day. We have a standing bi-weekly meeting for larger items, things that need more discussion, but usually we found that as a start we want to move fast, so it's either through Slack, it's through quick like Zoom huddles that we'll ping each other and be like, hey, do you want to catch up on this in 30 minutes or something else to knock it out? But we found that usually like teams of 2 or 3 can move really fast, make decisions get things in the right direction, then we float that up into the Slack channel, say, hey, here's a problem, here's a recommendation, everyone cool with this, any objections, things before we keep pushing it along. So just with the distributed team and the rate at which we want to iterate and move, that's what we've found to be most ideal for us.
It's great to hear that you can make that work async. When nothing, I think that the sales team would hate more, especially in being pulled into meetings every
Yeah.
single week. You guys have clearly built a lot of trust with them to keep buying into that. What do you put that down to?
We deliver on the same goals as one another. Like that issue I explained earlier, where I'm proud about our MQLs over here. Meanwhile, sales is missing revenue targets. Like my goals are sales goals. We have the same exact goal. It's revenue at the end of the day. And the two things that I'm aligned on most are revenue and pipeline generation. I don't care if it takes 10 MQLs, 100 MQLs, 10 million MQLs to get to it. That's not a number that I'm focused on overtly. It's more the pipeline and then optimizing, okay, what were the MQ, we don't even use MQLs, but like demo requests, like what segments, what information is coming in that's turning into quality pipeline for us so we can continue to hone in on it. Are we doing really well with smaller recruitment agencies, with larger recruitment agencies, with in-house, with you name it? And that's where we'll continue to iterate over time with things. But no, just that alignment on the shared goals, we're all rowing in the same direction. We're not fighting over attribution. We're not fighting over who gets credit for this or that or like any of that stuff. It doesn't catch us up because at the end of the day, it's we're all looking at our sales deals channel in Slack. Like when a deal comes through, and we're all very happy when things come through because we know that's our shared pool, that like that's us working towards attaining our goal. The only way that we have our goals split is just for like rough forecasting so we can understand resourcing. Like, what do we need to grow? Is it more BDRs? Do we need more AEs for capacity? Do we want to jumpstart a little bit more marketing brand awareness in different channels and everything else? So it's like we have goals based on, just where do we want to be next quarter, a year from now, coming up on 2025 planning. We'll set it that way. But when it comes down to it at the end of the day, I don't go into my marketing dashboard. I go to our net new revenue dashboard that looks at all of our revenue driving channels, AE, partner, BDR, marketing. Are we pacing on our little thermometer? Where are we at to goal? Where should we be at to goal? Good, bad. And that's the vision that we're all on.
Makes a lot of sense. And it's great that you've been able to free yourself up from that attribution and you're able to report on that. Before we go into kind of like how do you communicate that to CFO or leadership, I'd just like to know, in terms of marketing and sales working on the same team, are you guys incentivized to drive the same behavior, to drive towards the same goal? Typically, sales has obviously an uplift on commission. Marketing is normally just salary alone. Do you guys have some kind of incentive to work together?
Yeah, so sales is predictable, like you said, like it's commission. The more you bring in, the more that you're going to earn. On the marketing side, I am goal oriented. So mine is a split between salary and beyond. I get a bonus for when we go beyond our attainment goals, certain percentage of MRR growth that we're looking for every quarter. If we hit that, I get an extra bonus. Basically, like if the company does really well, I get to do really well. So there's that side of it. But the other marketing members of our team, they're just salary based. I gave them both the offer when they joined. I said, you can have X salary if you just want a consistent that, or we can take a little bit off, but know that the upside is going to be higher if we do hit those goals. We offer both. It really just comes down to, at the end of the day, I don't like to mess with people's money and finances when it comes to job. I like to give them flexibility and offers because people will say what they want to say. At the end of the day, that is one of the biggest reasons why you're in the job that you are. It's for the financial security, the compensation structure. So I like to give people options for what's going to make them happiest.
That's the structure I'm hearing more and more from companies like you who are taking this more consultative joint approach to the market, where the sales structure is largely the same, but then there is a team bonus that also gets issued to marketing when shared revenue goals are hit. It sounds like that works quite well. Did you have any other ideas on how that could work even better? And feel free to say, no, I think that's great. But any other ideas on how to drive that alignment even further?
I haven't really thought about that too much. It's a good question. So I don't personally have any thoughts off the top of my head, but have you heard any good ones that I should be aware of?
Not really. I know like more old school before there was so much like focus on attribution, and particularly in larger companies, some of the split would be actually like on a per deal basis.
Oh,
But I do see there being issues there, because then all of a sudden, like if that's being taken a little bit away from the salesperson, then it might start to encourage fights over who really had a stronger impact here.
Mm.
Oh, I knew this guy and I used to play golf with him years before and I had that relationship, and so what? They came to a conference and saw a few of our ads, but really it's because of me that we
Yeah.
now have their business. It starts a lot of that infighting. But yeah, it sounds like that the model that you guys are working with is going quite well for you.
Yeah, and that I won't get on the attribution soapbox, but that's my biggest qualm with it is it's been used for too long for what should get credit when the real purpose of attribution is to understand what's working and what's not working. Like what's showing up more in deals that we are winning, what's not showing up when we're losing deals that isn't the deals that we win, and what are we doing more of in deals that we're losing that we don't do when we win. There's a lot of interesting data that you can pull from there, and that's where I think people are missing the mark with how to leverage attribution.
And that probably plays into, I've seen you say that we as marketers need to be more data informed versus data driven, because if we're data driven, then we're relying very heavily on that attribution and then that can lead us astray.
Mm.
How do you communicate that though with like CFO and other leadership? Was that something that you had to work on, or was that kind of the existing culture within Loxo when you got there?
Luckily, our CEO was very bought in to the philosophy of just this new age of demand gen. And that was a big reason why he and I got along so well and why I joined the organization. Working at Refine Labs, I got to see both sides of the spectrum, people that wanted to do it and did it, they were fully bought in. And then people that had one stakeholder, a director of demand gen, a marketing leader who was bought in. And then you have the CFO, the head of sales, that's just like, what is this? Where are my leads? What's going on? And not fully bought in. Yeah, the team was fully aligned on it, but there was still a bit of that learning curve and just setting expectations for when do we expect things to come about. Because again, it's not pushing people through a funnel prematurely, but it's recognizing that there's people in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contracts. There are changes in leadership that are occurring and everything else. That all definitely played a part in it. But really at the end of the day, it was being able to like just show them, here's what we're going to do with pipeline. Here's what we're going to do with revenue. Show them our 90, I did a 90-day and a 365-day plan. He gave me time to execute the plan. After 90 days, how are we progressing? All the boxes checked. After 365, how are we progressing? The majority of the boxes were checked. And I mapped out, here's what I expect in terms of pipeline, in terms of revenue for the company, how we're going to grow. And things were following that plan. So they weren't so caught up in the tic-tac of what's getting attributed. Is this because you were spending more or less on paid search? Is it because we've hired an extra BDR? But is our strategy working? And that's what they really care about, because our CEO is like working for a recruitment software company about finding talent. He truly believes in that, and that I don't know what I don't know, so I'm going to bring people in who know what they should be doing to accomplish this thing I'm trying to go after. And he trusts us to do that. If we don't fulfill on it, I'd probably be having a different conversation or not be on this podcast with you right now. But that's the approach that he's taken with it.
It sounds like they've got a great mindset to work with, but it also sounds like you did have to shift a little bit from that lead gen mindset to that demand gen mindset. And the way I've seen it roll out and the way that we do it is you can't do it overnight, because at the end of the day, like you've got a sales team, there's a certain way of doing things, but you try and do it more gradually over time. Was that your approach, or did you try and get them to go cold turkey overnight?
So they didn't do too much before I was here, which was good. So that made it a little bit easier, and that we didn't have to go cold turkey or anything else. So I've seen it done both ways though, even when I was at Refine Labs, and I would say just rip the band-aid off. You can try to ease into it, but you're going to see diminished results from the lead gen. You're going to see leads going down. And since you're not really pushing fully into this demand gen strategy, I want to say you're not half-assing it, but you're not really giving it the appropriate build up time, content, energy. So we already know it's going to take a couple quarters at least to see results if you're really throttling it and doing the things that you need to set yourself up for success. So if you're only like half doing it, you've just extended that timeline. And when you extend the timeline, then the CFO is just like, TikTok, I'm seeing this investment, but I'm not seeing any return on it. So that's why I say just rip the band-aid off. And that was really the big reason, not the main reason, but one of the big things I wanted to do here at Loxo is I advised enough companies at Refine Labs. I watched enough scrape their knees learning the lessons that I was like, I really wouldn't do that. And then you watch them do it. I was like, I just want to do it on my own. I want to put this into practice. If I could truly run a marketing strategy, like I have full control over it, will it work? does this play out like I think it would? And that's what I'm seeing with it. And so that's where I was like, okay, the philosophy does work in today's day and age. Again, it's September 2024. If you're listening to this next year, things are going to be different. So some of those podcasts might not even be applicable anymore. But the general philosophy is just, I think it's marketing is just, are you keeping up with buyer expectations and marketing your product in a way, selling your product in a way across your entire ecosystem of go-to-market teams that is going to lead to a desired outcome based on how do people enjoy being spoken to, what type of information do they need, and how are you handling that relationship? That's what this is about. And we've been up and to the right the entire time I've been here, quarter over quarter. So I'd like to say that's a testament to the overall strategy is working.
Yeah, and so much of demand gen is like those marketing fundamentals, I think, put back into play, and probably just a little bit more of a deliberate effort, I would say, to look at the data and be data informed. And that's why I think demand gen has really found like a nice kind of spot in connecting
Mm.
revenue, sales, marketing, brand, and being that engine that tries to tie everything all together.
And to that point of like data driven versus data informed. So data driven is you're all in on attribution, everything that you can see. But we know that attribution is very limited to what can be tracked by a cookie, tracked by an activity logged in Salesforce, but so much can't be. And that's where the data informed side is. Like when you know that your CEO is really active on LinkedIn and your market spends a ton of time on LinkedIn and they start seeing his posts or her posts, or my favorite is I have him on our podcast. And I was like, Matt, you're not going to believe me when I say this. 6 months from now, you're going to be getting on calls with prospects and they're going to say, I feel like I know you already because I've been listening to the podcast. I know your point of view. I know what you're going to say. And they're already going to understand the value of what we do. You're not going to need to pitch them on that and discovery. You're just going to get straight into what are they struggling with? How can we help? And he's, I don't know. That's pretty far fetched. 6 months later, give or take a month on either side. I think it was on the earlier side, but he's just like, you were right. I was like, what are you talking about? Completely forgotten the conversation at that point. And he's just like, I've been getting on more and more discovery calls lately because he does founder-led sales where people know who I am. They know my point of view. They're excited to talk. It's less about who's Loxo and what are you, but they already know who we are, what we're going after, what we're trying to help them accomplish. And I think that's a big testament to being data informed because the demo requests that come in, they never say podcast. They never say Matt's LinkedIn post. Yeah, we have self-reported attribution. Maybe 1 out of 100 are going to note that. But I know that is making a big impact because it does come out in discovery calls. I'm sure I could go run a Gong script and see like when they reference that type of thing in the calls, and it would be another data point for me to use. But that's where I say that's how you look at things and be data informed, where it's a little bit of gut, a little bit of intuition, a little bit of qualitative insight. And then you marry that with some of the quantitative to get to the best combination.
It's a much nicer way to take a call, that's for sure. When people recognize you, they recognize your brand. It's a completely different dynamic, and it allows you to, they just trust you right away, and it allows you to be consultative and for them to trust you even deeper. And that's when you start to see those people who, okay, maybe I'm not actually in market now, but as soon as they are, they're going to come back to you. And we see it happen time and time again.
Exactly.
Just moving a little bit back to the CFO and what you are reporting to the CFO, because we're trying not to split like what marketing is going to bring versus what sales is going to bring. But is there an element of that? What does that kind of report look like? What are the key sort of metrics or goals that the CFO really cares about from a marketing point of view?
Yeah, we still absolutely do it. Just to understand, like, directionally, are we doing the right things? Is something breaking along the way? So, like, I've got my marketing report. I do a monthly one that's kind of just like a snapshot, what's going on, and then a more in-depth quarterly business review. Like, how did marketing do this past quarter? Because I always say report on data quarterly. It's the end of the quarter right now. I'm watching this week. Our sales deals channel is blowing up. We've closed more in this week than we have the prior 3 weeks combined because sales reps, right? That all said, with the reports and the data, it's looking at things like top level. I'll just go, okay, how much did we spend in variable ad spend? Okay, how many hand raisers did we get? So we have a dual motion go to market. So how many demo requests did we get? How many free trials did we get? What's our cost pers? How does that compare to last quarter? How does that compare to last quarter last year for seasonality to understand any trends there? Conversion rates, how are both those converting into qualified opportunities? Cost per SQO, how are those converting into customers? Cost per customer acquisition, payback periods. So we're looking at all of that. And that is to make sure, because we're steadily increasing like the amount that we spend per quarter as we want to continue growing on marketing. We'll make different bets. We'll do things. You add a jolt to the system too fast and you spike. Is that working how you would expect? Or did all of a sudden your SQOs didn't increase even though other things? And okay, is that a time lag effect? Or is that there's something broken where we're at AE capacity and they've stopped following up on the demo request because they just simply don't have time. They're falling off. They're going to competitors, anything else. So not actually happening with us, but that's a way for us to start to diagnose and understand, okay, are different investments working? Where are things continuing to go smoothly? We always hope that, hey, everything is looking exactly as we want. And at the end of every quarter, I do a look back on what did we do? And then I have the next quarter, here's what I'm forecasting. Here's our plan. So they know exactly, okay, here's where I'm investing. Here's where I'm not investing, not changing. But here's where I'm making a slight tweak where I think that we're going to increase our win rates, or we're going to shorten the sales cycle, or the ACV is going to change because of this new offer. And then map that all out. So that's what I provide to the CFO. Works really well in that case, because again, I think it's all about setting expectations. If you don't set goals, you don't set expectations. Like you could have two very different conversations. I could be thrilled at the end of the quarter. We did so well. CFO might have a completely different set of expectations where you think, I thought we were going to grow 2x, 3x. And if you don't get ahead of that conversation, that's why I like to take the time to do that, just so everyone's on the same page with, hey, here's where we're probably going to end up. We all know it's not perfect science, but we do that with marketing. We do that with BDRs. We do that with sales, just so everyone's all kind of aligned. And then again, we say at the end, hey, here's our pooled revenue goal. We anticipate marketing will make up 60% of this, BDRs make up 30%, sales 10, whatever the shakeup may be. But that's the general way that we usually work on the finance side.
So because you have that understanding of the shared goals, and because you have the relationship you do with sales, I suppose when you present that data to the CFO, what you're saying is you're also able to be helpful and consultative and not just talk about this through the lens of marketing alone, because marketing doesn't exist in a silo, but can speak to, I guess, paint a more vivid picture for the CFO, which is probably a more helpful way to look at marketing and report on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because again, it goes back to that ecosystem where if we stop doing this, companies do this all the time in December, we're going to pull all media spend, or we just had a down quarter, we have to do layoffs, we have to stop stuff. Jason Lemkin's just like, you pull marketing spend, just watch your pipeline tank a couple quarters later, and then you're going to wonder what's going on. You're going to be thinking, what's the issue? It's like you just killed your future success by doing that. So yeah, it really helps to just have the visibility at the different levels for us and knowing that we're all going in that same shared goal direction.
Yeah, it's that time lag that so many miss, and probably something that you need to constantly keep reminding leadership of. It's something that exists, and then you have data points to back that up.
Exactly.
One more question for you, Sam. I saw you ended your paid search campaigns and your spend indefinitely at Loxo. I suppose what was the thinking behind this? Why did you do that, and have you seen a direct impact from it yet?
Yeah, I did it for the LinkedIn virality. Totally kidding. No, so again, I'm a numbers guy, and I know I've been saying you can't attribute one specific touch point, but paid search is a very last touch oriented channel when you set your keywords up in a certain way. So what I mean by that is we could show up for what is recruiting software, and you're going to get very top of level awareness, like people who are just trying to learn it. Or you could go after keywords like best recruiting software, best applicant tracking system, things like that. So I only focused on the consideration purchase type keywords. So those latter keywords, because that's what people are going to when they're finally like, okay, I'm in market, or I'm about to be in market. I'm doing research. I want to know who are the platforms that I need to be looking at. And after running those for a while, our ACV, we have a one plan that we can sell one user seats. It starts at $119 a month. So you can see we're looking at $1,400 a year. Google is very expensive, and it's not getting any cheaper. So some of those keywords, best applicant tracking system, you could have one of those one user new recruiter shops going after and plugging that in. That keyword might go for $80 just for a click, and that's not a guaranteed conversion. So add those up, say we have somehow like a 10% conversion rate, which would be phenomenal. Now you're looking at, that's $800 just for that one lead. Even if we win that, like I said, at 33%, that's what, $2,400 for customer acquisition costs on a $1,400 purchase. I'm up I say I'm upside down. I always aim to have a 12-month ad spend CAC payback period. That's already put me up. We better be keeping this customer here for more than a year and a half, 2 years. Otherwise, we're never going to recoup our money back. And so after doing that analysis over and over, I just found that for almost all of our keywords, we were past that 12-month ad CAC payback period. And then I look at our overall marketing strategy, the other channels, the other parts of our ecosystem, and I see when I pull out the Google ad side of it, we're at 4, 5, 6 month ad CAC payback spend. And I go and looked at LinkedIn where I can see that we have so much room to grow. We're far from the point of diminishing returns on who we can reach, how much we can spend, more campaigns, content that we can push. Multiply that out across a couple other channels. I just look at it, I'm like, I could get more bang for my buck by redeploying this money that was going into Google, although it's bringing in some customers, our efficiencies are higher in this other place where we can bring in more customers by putting it over there. So that was really the whole reason behind what it was. It's not to say that it didn't work, because it did work. It just wasn't as efficient as the other mechanisms that we had in place.
It's a great way to look at it. And as you said, run the numbers, especially because people are a lot further along in their journey once they get to Google Ads. And even those demo requests, the conversions, the customers you do get from there, because they're not as bought into the brand when they start, at least we find, not in every circumstance, oftentimes there isn't that alignment. And
Mm-hmm.
when there's not that alignment on what they need versus what the product can deliver, that's what often leads to a churn situation. And yeah, that's not great for everyone. So it's fantastic that you have that holistic view.
Mm-hmm. And even when you get into the attribution side of it, say the CFO was just saying, how are we replacing that? What's going on? If you do run true attribution, you could look at, okay, what was the channel? Paid search. We did the analysis and we looked at, okay, what did we lose from paid search that we were getting in the previous quarter? And we saw upticks in organic search and direct, because the goal of our marketing strategy, to take a phrase from Tori Kinlick, one of my old colleagues at Refine Labs, he says, the goal of how we want to market is to win before Google. You want to get on that first list so that they don't even have to go to Google to find out who is the best applicant tracking system. It's just, I've been seeing Matt's posts. I already know Loxo, what they do. Again, we created the demand with them. Like, they know who we are, what we do. They want to choose us. When time's already, they're just coming straight to our website, and that's showing up as direct, or they're just Googling Loxo. We don't run paid ads. So the organic search result, our homepage is going to be the first thing they click on. Buyers are smart. They go to the top right corner, request demo, click on that button. They come into our funnel that way. So even though there was a decrease in the funnel, so to speak, from the paid search side, when we look at it in a very literal sense of, are we picking up web traffic elsewhere to make up for it? Yes, we were. And then some, because there was even further lift from that bet that we were saying earlier. We can be more efficient, we believe, by investing this in other places.
No, I love that. It makes a lot of sense. And sorry, Sam, I know I said last question a couple ago. I've got one more for you if you've still got
Yeah,
on.
let's do it.
How do you think about balancing when you're using ads, distributing like product education and then like category education? So stuff that educates around the services of the product that you guys provide and why someone needs it, and not directly always talking about your product, but I suppose stuff that you would put in the bucket of creating demand a little more. How do you balance those two?
Yeah. So we have this, I love Lex and Brandon on our team. Every set of ads that we create, we have this axis, basically looks at, we'll call it awareness level, top of funnel, bottom of funnel, and then like how developed do we make the ads? Are they very lo-fi thought leadership ads based, or is it this high production, it looks like an ad, smells like an ad, it probably is an ad? And so we run a balance of all of them, but I'd say roughly we're probably doing about an 80-20 split, in the sense of 80% is going to be what we call category or problem focused. And then 20% is going to be touching on a little bit more product stuff or customer stories, things like that. And so the reason for this is why we invest so heavily in the 80% is goes back to the trust and how people buy and think. If you're talking about a problem, again, buyers are very smart. When people listen to our podcast, they probably know that we can sell recruiting software. We don't really pitch Loxo in our podcast, but based on what we talk about, they can get a sense for that. So the same thing with our ads. We talk about the problems that we know our market is struggling with, the different things that they're encountering, and we build messaging that speaks to that. And the reason for that is it shows we understand them, we understand what they're going through. And to the point of buyers are smart, they know that if we're talking about that, we're probably the answer to that, but we're not making it all about us. We want to help them to understand, like, hey, we hear you. we get you. We recognize this problem, because they want to solve the problem. No one wants to buy software. No one ever wants to buy software if they don't have to. It's a cost at the end of the day, right? So that's how we help to get past that just, oh, I have to buy software, into just, okay, at least they get it. They're invested in this. They've proven it. And then that's where we'll have that other 20% of ads that's showing, hey, here's a peer in your space that has accomplished this. And again, it's not focusing on Loxo, but it's just like, they were struggling with biz dev. Now they closed 3x more deals per quarter. Like, bad example of it, but using things like that to speak to what can come from the product itself, but not in the look at Loxo, look at how great we are, look at all of our product names, slap them on here, 25 million X ROI with a blue background that looks and smells like every other single ad. That's not the style that we run. So it's very problem category focused.
I love that. Speaking to their problems, show that you understand them. B2B is fundamentally about building relationships with people. That's how people trust you. And that's why they trust when they make that buying decision, they go to you over someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And you meet someone at a party and all that other person speaks about is themselves and how great they are. You don't come away from that conversation being like, what a great dude. Can't wait to catch up with that person again anytime soon. It's the same stuff in real life, like showing you understand them, you empathize with them, that you're here to help them without the expectation of anything in return. And I think that's just what we need to do, but on a one-to-many, one-to-few basis as marketers.
Yeah. And I was talking to one of our biggest customers just today, and they brought up on their own, the contact was saying she'd been speaking with Matt for a year prior to even bringing in anyone else into the conversation. I can't believe that Matt spent a year going back and forth over email with me instead of kicking me over to a BDR. And now I meet with our CSM. Her name's Vivian. She's absolutely incredible. I meet with her. It ranges twice a week. Sometimes we'll just shoot an email. I might have one question for her. I might have a 60 questions for her, but she's always happy. She's always able to be there to talk to me. But it all comes back to, she's just, so few companies do this anymore where they don't focus on the relationship. They don't focus on that, because this will never show up in a win-loss report. But I can tell you, I've made purchasing decisions based on two great software products, equal to each other, same price, near same price. If I like the sales rep over here a lot more than this sales rep, or even just a little bit more, I'm going with this company every time, because that is a representation of, okay, I'm assuming that's probably what it's going to be like to work with them. If that's the values, if that's how they hold themselves with prospects, they're probably sure that they do that with customers too. So like, having the ability to develop those relationships, to show that's a point of emphasis, I think that's something that, again, you'll never see it in a win-loss report. You'll never see it in an NPS score or anything else, but you better believe that people make decisions for those reasons too.
It sounds like you're at a place, Sam, where that approach is really baked into the DNA of the organization. And it's a fantastic place to be. I love that you guys are bootstrapped and that you've got that buy-in to be in it for the long game and the long haul. And I think your competitors, especially if they've taken on that VC money, they're not going to be able to have that same patience. They're not going to be able to do really what needs to be done. Look, you've been so generous with your time. I love your approach, and whether you're in sales or marketing, I just think that the way that the team is working together to win more is something a lot of companies can really aspire towards. Before we round out the conversation, Sam, is there anything else that you want to direct our audience's attention to or add at all?
I'd say if you ever have questions, always happy to help. Happy to bounce questions around. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I've got a newsletter where I do AMA stuff. So if you ever have questions, like, I love to answer that stuff, because that's how I get to learn too. Like, I love being exposed to different problems, what people are struggling with, and then thinking about it and helping you work through it. So don't be shy. Send me a message. I'm more than happy to help and do anything else I can there.
Okay, fantastic. All right, listeners and viewers, make sure you check out Sam Kuehnle on LinkedIn. The spelling is a little difficult, like my own last name, so we'll put that in the show notes for you all. Sam, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, of course. This was fun, George.
Cheers.